What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down what's happening for the markets going into next week, as we have new catalysts coming out, not to mention new developments in the charts. I'm also going to talk about some key levels to watch for on SPY and whether or not the bottom is in, and what you should be watching for as time goes on. So just note that I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. Anyways, for the markets, I just want to mention that right now we are still looking bearish. SPY is still dipping in the after hours, so we're not really bottoming just yet. So I think that we're going to be doing a very, very important test of that 20 EMA on the weekly time frame. That does not necessarily mean we have to hold above 538, but that means that we'll see if we close above that by next week's close. And if we do manage to achieve that, that could be a sign that the market's going to try to rebound. So I'll explain that in just a couple of minutes. Let's just go over some catalysts real quick. So notes that we had some unemployment numbers that came out. Everything was decent. It wasn't too bad. The market pumped a little bit in the morning, and then we got this massive rug pull. We saw a big dump after that. SPY ended up losing some key supports, filling its gap down below, and we continued to see a lot of downside as time went on. So the question is, what's going to happen from here? Well, on Monday, we actually have some consumer inflationary expectations data. It's all very minor. Tuesday is also very minor. We have some business optimism reports. Once again, it's all very, very minor. Then for Wednesday, we have CPI data. CPI is going to be massive for the markets. It's going to affect whether or not the market bounces or not, and what kind of reaction we get. So watch for CPI on Wednesday. For Thursday, we have the PPI report coming out. That's going to be very important as well. So we'll see what that leads to. Followed by Friday, which is when we have the consumer sentiment report and the 5-year inflationary expectations for Friday. So the main time for volatility in terms of data will be on Wednesday and Thursday, as we have the CPI and PPI data reports coming out. And this will be the last week for the markets until we get FOMC the week after. So CPI comes out on Wednesday, September 11th, and then the week after that, we have FOMC on the 18th. The market thinks there's a 70% chance we get a 25 basis point cut and a 30% chance we get a 50 basis point cut. Right now, we're leaning towards a 25 basis point cut. We'll see what that looks like after CPI data comes out. And then lastly, this is what like the earnings calendar looks like. We have Oracle on Monday, GameStop on Tuesday, and a few more retail like Petco. Then we have Manchester United and a few more on Wednesday, followed by Big Lots on Thursday. And that's pretty much it for earnings. There's nothing too serious, nothing too crazy coming out. None of these will affect the market way too much. So we have some free time when it comes to earnings. The next cycle starts a little bit later. But until then, we have some time. Now the question is what's happening with the charts. So the weekly on SPY looks bearish. We got this big red bar. So I think we might dip a little bit more. I want to call out that there is technically another gap to fill. SPY does have a second gap down here. I'll be watching 538 as the main support. It is possible, technically, we could come down to fill the second gap around 534. It is technically possible, but I wouldn't expect us to drop way lower than that. I think that we're going to form a bottom very, very soon by the mid 530s. I think that whether we hold gap support or not, whether it's 536 or 534, we should form a bottom soon. Then we should see a rebound. So the main thing I'm looking at is going to be the weekly 20 EMA. I think that what's going to happen is we're going to be testing this 538 area. Even if we do dip below this to get to like 536, 534, it's going to be completely fine, because by the end of the week, after the CPI data report comes out on Wednesday, right, we're hoping that we get a little rebound, we dip and then rebound and try to hold 538 by Friday of next week. If we hold that, that's going to be a sign the market's getting ready for a small little bounce. So that's what I think is going to happen. That's what my prediction is, at least for the market moving forward. The bounce hasn't happened yet, so don't bet on it quite yet, or don't be like too fixated on just solely that notion. For now, the charts are bearish, so we may dip a little bit more. But what I predict is going to happen is we're going to see some kind of bounce into like the middle of next week. I find that's to be more probable. For ES, it's the same thing essentially. We're actually just at the weekly uh, 20 EMA. We have this imbalance down here at 53.65. So I think we could dip a little bit more. Then we could be looking for a rebound after that. But just be very mindful of that. We're actually a little bit below our 20 EMA. So this imbalance could attract us a little bit lower before we see an attempt to bounce, whether it's at 53.64, if not by this previous resistance area around 5300 flat. But I presume that we're going to most likely get a bounce on ES very soon once we reach these key levels. So I think we could dip a little bit more into like the mid 5300s before we see a rebound attempt next week. But that's what I think is the most likely case. For Nvidia, we're dipping towards that 100 area. We also have previous resistance becoming support around the mid 90s. 95 to 100 is going to be our key support zone. I think Nvidia might dip a little bit more towards that area before we try to bounce. So that's what I find to be the most likely possibility. I'll be watching to see how it ends up developing from there. Bitcoin is continuing to fall. I think that Bitcoin is now losing our weekly 50 EMA, so it could dip a little bit more. But one thing that does tend to happen historically is there's a lot of buyers they tend to defend like 52 to 50,000 around that range, especially as you have resistance right there, which is becoming support. So I think that's where we're going to be most likely heading towards 50 to 52,000, that range. And then we're going to be looking to see if we get a bounce around that area. So watch for that very carefully. We'll see how things go. And that's going to be very key for us moving forward. For a few more out there, we also have like Tesla. Now, I want to call out that on the 4-hour time frame, Tesla is once again on a bit of a uptrend. Technically, it is technically uptrending here, unless we start losing the support. So it is possible we do lose that. But even if we lose it, it does not turn us extremely bearish, because there was an instance where we did lose it like right here and then we got bought back up. So I presume what's going to happen is Tesla's going to be testing some big support next week. It is possible it dips a little bit lower to this imbalance towards like 208, but then somewhere around this range, I do think we're going to get bought back up in the low like 200s, 208 or so. We could be dipping to try to get bought back up. And we'll see if Tesla could reclaim the yellow trend line. I think we might actually dip below it, looking bearish momentum that's building before we try to get bought back up. So I think that's going to be the most likely case for Tesla for the time being. So watch and see this 210 area. If it doesn't hold, we're going down to this imbalance at 208, and we'll see if we get a bounce off that. This could also be a potential long opportunity if you guys want to buy swings. I'm seeing some opportunity in this. For the QQQ, we're looking bearish. We're continuing to fall very, very hard. I think that there's key support at 444. If that fails us, we could be tipping all the way down towards 440. So watch and see if 444 holds. If it doesn't hold, we'll be watching our next support. But so far, I think we might dip a little bit more to test that, and we'll see if we get a bounce off that. But as of right now, the triple Q is looking more bearish. There's no sign of it bouncing yet. So it could dip a little bit more before we see that end up panning out. I think the last one I'll go over for today is going to be Aapl. Apple's continuing to fall. We're going to be looking at this key support at 218. I think we might be testing 218 very soon, and we'll see if we bounce or not. But watch that very carefully. We'll see if the buyers end up stepping in to defend it. I presume we're going to be dipping towards 218, and we'll see if we get that bounce. But watch that very carefully. As you can see, we're forming these wicks right here, which is a little bearish. So we're going to be dipping a little bit more next week. We're going to dip at least 2 points to the 218 area, and we'll see if we bounce or not. So far, we do look like we're going to be looking for that key test, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. So watch that test of 218, and we'll see how it goes from there. That's pretty much it, guys. I know it's Friday. The market is once again closing for the week, and then we'll see how things develop. So I'm not going to go over way too much more from here. I think that this 206 area is going to be key for the Russell 2000. If we don't hold 205 to 206, our next target is going to be all the way down towards like 202. So it's looking more bearish for now. It might dip a little bit more, but we'll see if buyers defend the low 200s. We'll be watching that very, very carefully. For a few more like Meta, I think Meta may dip a little bit more. We're losing 500 right now, so we could be looking for a dip towards the mid 490s before we see some buyers defend it. Amazon's also dipping right now. We're looking at 170s as our main support. If it doesn't hold us, I think this low is going to be retested around this 168 area, but then watch and see if we get a bounce off this. The last time we had 168, we got a nice bounce. So watch and see if this 168 to 170 area holds for Amazon. All right, guys, so that's it for the video. I will go over a lot more details for all the tickers I typically go over on my Sunday video. I like to wait till Sunday because so much could happen over the weekend. And then for Saturday, I might release another video about the S&P 500, give you guys another update about that. So with that being said, I'm going to end the video from here because it's the weekend that's coming up. Enjoy the weekend and do what you have to do, guys. Look out for my video tomorrow where I'm going to be breaking down the bigger time frames for the charts. And then for Sunday, I'll be giving you guys a much more meticulous update on all the different tickers from Nvda, AMD, and the others. So with that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, take care and peace out.